Hey everyone, this is Big Face from Big Face Robotics, back with part 3 of the Mark II robot head build. I've painted all my 3D printed parts, and we're getting ready for reassembly of the robot. I'm pretty pleased with the finish on most of these. I wouldn't say it's perfect everywhere. This came out quite nice. I'm ready to put this back together. I've made a start by putting together the base. These aluminium sections that I painted red were press fit into the two 3D printed parts to form the base, and that's where the servo's going to sit. The clearance wasn't massive to begin with, and with a couple of layers of paint it was a very tight interference fit, so I haven't had to use any glue, and that isn't coming apart again in a hurry. I've also stuck some self-adhesive rubber feet onto the bottom, and that's quite a nice part, I think. I also painted the inside of this part white, and that's where the RGB LED is going to sit inside there. I haven't painted the back of this because you're not going to see it, and I glued on the front section there, which is just to diffuse the light a little bit. So I'll get the other pieces together and we can start putting this back together. So there we go, this is all the ingredients for the robot minus the Arduino, so we can get this thing put back together. Okay, so first issue that I've come across is that with the paint build up on this hole for the servo, we've lost a bit of clearance there and the servo will not fit. So I'm going to file this back and then touch up the paintwork, masking off the rest of this. Okay, a slight false start on that one. I've touched up the bits that I had to file back, and while I'm waiting for that dry, I can continue putting together some of the other pieces. So here's the robot all put together. It was a nice sunny day outside, so I took the robot outside to get some videos and pictures. So check that out here. So you saw in the time lapse that I installed the RGB LED into this part here. You can see from the back it's hot glued in, very sturdy. Got a camera mounted up here, and as an experiment, I'm not sure if this is going to work yet, but the ultrasonic sensor is mounted in the head. I'm not always sure I like the look of the ultrasonic sensor because it does look like eyes, so I've tried to disguise it a little bit in this robot. I've got a 3D printed grill in front of the sensor with some very light sort of padding in behind, and I'm hoping, I have done some experiments and it does seem to still work, but I'm hoping that the ultrasonic sensor will still read reliably. If not, I'm going to have to be doing some modifications. So with this all put together, the next step is the electronics. I've got this built up from when I was testing. I've got an Arduino Nano on a breadboard. I'll be doing some tests, the first one of which is going to be the RGB LED. I've written a quick sketch and uploaded it to the Nano to drive the RGB LED. I'm just using 3 digital outputs at the moment, so I've got the 7 colours cycling through. It's a bit difficult to see in this light. Actually, I've dimmed the lights a bit, but you can see the colours changing, blue into green, and then you'll see red. Ultimately, I'd like to have these variable using PWM outputs, and that's the plan. I've just got to make sure I've got enough I/O of the right type on the Nano to do what I want. The next job will be to test this sonar that's living in behind this grill and see if we can get that working and do some tests. Right, I've got a bit of a test rig set up here. I've got a little script running on the Arduino Nano that is just reading the sonar sensor and displaying a distance value on the screen. If this will focus, there we go. So you see it scrolling through and aligned roughly with where the front of the sonar is on the robot, and with the head straight. I've got a tape measure laid out, and I've got a block of wood that I can use to set a measurement and see what it's reading on the screen. And bearing in mind that this sonar is behind a grill and some fabric sort of padding material, I think it's actually some sort of filter for a panel fan or something like that, and I've done that just to hide the sonar so that it doesn't look like eyes on the robot. So I'm going to start with the block on the 10cm mark with it up straight. Sure enough, on the screen 10. If I move it away a bit, you can see it increasing. And I'll keep going until I hit 20 and see where I land up on the tape measure. There we go. If you look, it's pretty close. Obviously trying my hardest to keep this up straight. So if I go out to 30, and again keeping the block of wood straight, I'm pretty close on the reading. 40, again pretty good. Up to 50, again trying to keep that piece of wood as straight as possible, and sure enough 50 on the screen. I'll skip a couple, I'll take it out to 80. You can see we're reading a bit under there. Oh no, might just be I might not have the block lined up. Yeah, there we go, reading 80. If I take that out to a metre or so, I'm still reading a bit under. It might be that the sonar's actually picking up some other things in the room, like my arm, or the off the wall. I think it's fair to say that having that in front of the sonar doesn't seem to be affecting the reading, certainly up to 80 centimetres to a metre. And I would imagine if I turn the robot to be pointing out into the middle of the room, I can get that reading up higher. And again, One of the downsides with Sonar is the wide beam. It might well be picking things up all over the place. There we go, I've got that pointing off into space and keeping myself out of the way, and you can see the figures jumping up a bit higher, so I think it will work. Doesn't seem to be affecting the readings too much. So that's the end of this episode. I'm really pleased with the progress to date. I've got the RGB LED flashing, that looks great. I've got the Sonar working, that's hidden up behind this grill. Wasn't sure 100% that was going to work, but it seems to not make any difference to the readings. The paint job on the 3D printed parts is looking great. I'm sure I could have spent another week or two sanding and fine tuning, but I'm more than pleased with the result. So next steps on this one will be to get the servos moving, get some sliders on a PC talking to the Nano so I can control the servo positions, and get some video input from the camera. So that's it for now. Hit subscribe below and join me in future videos, and we'll get this thing moving. And as always, thanks for watching.